Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate every single one of you so very much. Today we are doing episode 86 of my palette roulette series, in which I let an app choose a palette for me. I use it throughout the week. I take pictures of the looks I created. I show you swatches and I talk to you about the palette, and then we pick a new one. So this week, the palette that we had to use was the Morphe Jaclyn Hill. What is this one? Morphe Jaclyn Hill Dark Magic palette. This is a palette that it's always on a sale. It's always on a sale at Ulta Beauty. So with that being said, if you're looking to get this palette or any of the Vault palettes, please check out Ulta Beauty because they always have a sale on it. And of course you can earn your points and get product for free later on because you're purchasing from Ulta Beauty. Not sponsored. With that being said, this is one of 4 palettes in her Vault collection, which was launched in 2018. True to any Jaclyn Hill product that's launching, there's a little bit of controversy behind it. They sent these palettes out to a bunch of influencers for PR. The influencers did reviews of the palette, and there wasn't much that was said that was great. So they pulled them, they pulled the launch back, and they did something. I'm not sure what they did to the palettes prior to actually launching them and sending out new PR, but they did something to them. The only reason why you know that they did something to them is because each one of the palettes has a little sticker on it that covers up something and now says V2 on it. I don't know if it supposedly is covering up V1, meaning variation 1, and now this is variation 2. I'm not sure. But like I said, this is one of 4 palettes that all had to be pulled back and all had to be redistributed after they did something to it. Repressing them, maybe reformulating, I don't know. I just know that it didn't take very much time for them to relaunch them once they were all pulled back, so it couldn't have been that big of a deal. They couldn't have reformulated them. I mean, my thoughts, just knowing what I know about the beauty world, I know that it takes a whole lot longer than a couple weeks to reformulate. And that's about the approximate amount of time that these took to go from being pulled to being relaunched. So there's that. This is $16 regular price. It does have 0.56 ounces of product, 10 shadows in it. So 0.056 ounces per pan is in this palette. This does have a 3.2 star rating on the Ulta Beauty website, and it has a 4.2 star rating on the Morphe website. I don't think either one of those is out of line. I do think that this probably runs in that 3 to 4 star rating. It's definitely not a 5-star palette, but with that being said, it is also shades that a lot of people have problems with. So let's talk about the packaging. This is a white cardboard, kind of glossy white packaging. This emblem right here, there was also a lot of controversy around this because when she came out with her Becca palette that she did with Becca, it had kind of the same motif on it. This one does have the the confetti pieces centralized in a circle around Morphe x Jaclyn Hill, and then they like disperse out kind of like a firework. And then some of the glitter pieces around it do have colors in it that represent the colors that are in the palette. So that is the front of the palette. The spine of the palette just says which palette it is. So we are talking about the Dark Magic palette, and then the back of the palette just looks like this, where it just has, you know, the information on the palette, its lifespan, and then you guys can see over there that sticker that is over whatever that says V2. This does also state the 16 grams or 0.56 ounces. And yeah, and it supposedly has a 12-month shelf life. I will tell you, I've had these in my collection longer than 12 months. And I have used this palette before, and this palette does present itself and performs the exact same way as it performed when I first got it. The inside of the palette does have a nice size mirror on it, which I am under the understanding that the first palettes that came out didn't, so I'm not sure about that. And then this is what the shades in the palette look like. So we're looking at, you know, a like dark green, a real dark and sultry kind of motif in the shades in this palette. We're looking at blues and greens and silvers and of course a couple of like neutral tones. The one thing I appreciate about this palette is this color here. It is called Poof, and it is a really nice, just flesh toned, lay over the top of a primer kind of color, and a lot of palettes don't really represent that piece within them. What I don't love about this palette is there isn't really a great brow bone or inner corner highlight shade unless you want to use the silver, which is on my inner corner today, but it kind of comes out looking a little bit messy when using it. So, and it's definitely not a color I would put in my brow bone, honestly. So the colors in here are the same kind of colors that, you know, just aren't easy to work with. They're just not. Like any greens that you get, any blues that you get, they're going to take a little bit more work. This shadow today does have this army green, this blue, and this silver in it. And those are the only three colors in the eye look. And I really dig this eye look. And this eye look didn't take me very long to do, but I have had far less detailed eye looks take me so long with this shadow palette just because these aren't easy colors. These aren't easy colors to work with. A lot of the times when you get greens and blues, you're gonna see some patchiness in the blend. These aren't the easiest shadows to blend. And I think a lot of it just really boils down to the colors in the palette. Like they can look patchy if you go in with them and just try to put them on your eye and like blend them. That's not going to work. You're not going to be happy with the makeup that presents itself on your eye. You really have to go in and blend in little tiny small circles or pat the color in and then just barely with a teeny tiny detail brush, just barely blend the edges out, which is what I have done with this eye look today. I did put some more of that olive green on the upper portions of my eye just because I didn't find that I found it disappeared in the blue. So I did go in and put some more olive green on there and almost just totally destroyed my eye look because it wanted to stick in certain places because it can be patchy, right? I would say though that olive green was not my most favorite in the palette. I had the hardest time working with that shade. At least with the dark green and the dark blue, I really knew what I was doing with those. I knew I had to go in and I had to pat them on my eye. I knew that I couldn't blend them out so much. With this green, I really did think that it was going to be an easier color to blend out because it is a lighter shade of green, and the darker the shade is, the harder it is to blend without it looking patchy. But I had the hardest time, honestly, with these two shades here. And that's shocking. These don't have a super long longevity. I know that I did a look that included my Natasha Denona eyeshadow in my Simply Sample series, and I loved the look. It included the brown, the Natasha Denona shade, and this black, and it was a beautiful eye look. But at the end of the day, I would say even 5 hours in, the Natasha Denona shadow was pretty much the only one that you could see, except for what I had blended out up at the top. There was nothing on the outer V of my eye, nothing. There was nothing there. And I was like, what the hell happened to my eyeshadow? But true tea, these shadows last maybe 4 to 5 hours before they are absolutely gone on your eye, or they have faded to a point that you wonder where it's gone. And that is with or without primer. They don't perform any better with a primer as far as longevity goes than they do without a primer. When using these shadows with a primer, it's best to actually not set the primer. Use a tacky primer and don't set it, because a lot of these shadows you are just going to want to pat on and barely blend out. And the tackier primer will give them something more to cling onto than a set primer would. I also typically will go in and put a primer on and then set all of my eye with the lightest shade in the palette, which I didn't do. I would set the creasing up just because I did want a little bit of a smoother transitional blend towards more up towards my brow bone, and I didn't want all the color to stick, but on my eyelid I didn't set that primer at all. The shimmers in this palette have more of a creamier and metallic feel to them than a shimmer feel to them, so they actually act a lot more like a satin than they do a shimmer or even a metallic, right? They're not chunky, and they're not like, they don't like ball up. They do perform beautifully and they go across the lid beautifully, I feel like, but they perform more like a satin than they do a shimmer. This silver here is the center like halo piece of my eye today, and while I do think that it is pretty, it's just not got that like pizzazz factor of it. I thought about taking another shimmer and patting it over the top of it just so it has a little bit of sparkle to it, and it just would have destroyed the eye look for purposes of this video. I really wanted you to see how the whole thing performed, and it's just not, they're just not shimmers. They're creamy, which is nice because they do kind of just glide onto the eye really nicely. I would say that even though they're creamy, they don't like crease a whole bunch, which is spectacular. I don't really think that there's any like necessarily standout shades in this palette. I don't think any of them performed any better than another, but I do think that this one here performed worse. And this one ran a close second to that. This black is a really good black. It's got some really good pigmentation, but it does have some like glitter in it, which is weird to me. Like, I hate when makeup companies do that. Like, why are we putting glitter in our blacks? There doesn't need to be glitter in the black. And I understand, I think, why they did it. You know, it's dark magic, it's nighty and sultry and like spooky, and you think of a night sky and stars, but I don't need glitter in my black. Thankfully, the glitter in that black doesn't come off on your eye. That leads me back to why we put in glitter in our black. I mean, if it's not going to represent itself in an eye look, then there's no reason to have it there, in my opinion. But it is a really decent pigmented black, which is more than I can say for a lot of the other shades in here. This swatches like crap. So we're going to swatch and we're going to try and see if we can get a good swatch out of it. But there's only 10 shadows here, so I think it's fair to swatch them for you guys. Most of the shadows in here are really, really silky to the touch, and that's another thing it's got going for it. So this first shadow here is called Poof. Again, it's a matte. It is a cream tone shadow. It's just really flesh tone. It works really well as an all over the eye like base shadow. If you need one of those, this palette has definitely got it in it for you. This shadow here is the Power Cut. This is the metallic silver. It reminds me more of almost like a not a silver. This is silver-ish, but not really a silver. So then we have this one, which is called Shush Your Face. It is a matte taupe. Then we have this one here, which is called Turquoise, and it is a metallic emerald. All right, and then the last one in that top row is called Diversion, and it is a metallic like gunmetal shade, and those are the first 5 in the palette. I mean, I dig the color story. It's a really pretty color story, and those actually swatched a lot better than I thought they were going to, but there's not a whole lot of shimmer and shine there, right? Those shimmers are, as I said, very much just kind of more satin than they are shimmer. They do have a little bit of metallic nature to them, so you're going to get a teensy bit of like reflect, but not very much. The last 5 are Potion, which is the matte olive shade, and again, that swatched a lot better than I thought it was going to. Then we have the blue, which is called Busted. I kind of love this blue. Then we have the matte green, which is called Inside Job, and it's really kind of a dark, like tealy green. And then we have the dark brown, which is called Mojo, and that one swatched just how I thought it would. And then we have the black. Look at that black. Like, I'm telling you, the black is stunning. The black is called Temptress, and that is what the other 5 shadows look like in the palette. But I wish you guys could see it super clear. All the glitter that's in the black is now all over my hand. I can see it all over my hand, but it's not in the swatch of the black. So, like, there's really no purpose. There's no purpose to have it in a black if it's not going to stay in the black. I don't want glitter all over my face. I don't know a whole lot of people that do want glitter all over their face. Some great things about this palette is that I didn't find any of the colors to really stain my eyes, which is nice because you do have a really deep dark blue and you have a really deep dark green, which I would say of the two, those two did kind of stain a little bit. I noticed the other day when I did a blue look that I did have, upon taking off my makeup, a little bit of blue residue kind of in the crease, but it wasn't something that was still there in the morning when I did my makeup, my skincare routine in the morning. It was gone by the time I went to put on my makeup the next day. So if there is a little bit of staining, it's not going to be long set staining, which shocks me that there was even any staining because, as I said, the makeup looks didn't last for forever on my face. I would say that my biggest disappointment with this palette are, you know, a couple of the colors that I really thought were going to be easier to use because of the tone of said colors. But this is probably one of the only cool tone palettes in my collection that I actually quite liked using. And with that being said, I didn't like it at first. I had used it before when I first got it, and granted 2 years ago I knew nothing about makeup, and I still like have opportunity, right? I still have a lot to learn, but 2 years ago when I bought those palettes, I knew nothing about makeup, and I certainly did not know how to use a shadow that didn't want to function like all the warm tone shadows in my collection. So I hated it. And even going into the beginning of this week, I also didn't have a great time with it. One of my first looks, I actually did a couple of videos in, and it was like an olive green look, and I was so pissed off at the olive green because it didn't want to blend. When I tried to pack more on, it just lifted up what was underneath it. It faded away super quickly. I think by the time I got done with that first video, I had to go in and put more olive green into my eye look just so that I could do the second video with that same look. But what I do like about it is that when you can figure out how to use them, when you understand that these colors are ultimately a difficult shade range to work with on your eyes, no matter who they come from, and you realize that you more so have to pack the color on than blend the color and just utilize your mastery or your skill. I wouldn't say I'm a master or skilled, but I'm a little skilled, and so I had to fall back on my skill instead of just sloppily putting it on my eyeball to get some bigger, better looks. And I think the last couple looks that I have gotten out of the palette, I've really, really enjoyed using the palette, and I enjoyed the looks. Where I found myself happiest was just going in with one color, putting it into the crease, blending it up to the brow bone, deepening it up in the crease and the outer V, and then putting one of the, you know, shimmery satiny shades on the lid. It isn't, and this one, I really like this eye look. I think this eye look came out really, really good. Correct me if I'm wrong. But there's quite a bit of fallout with it, especially with the bottom row with the darker shades. There's quite a bit of fallout. I don't notice it so much if you like tap off really well, because I do believe that this palette does a whole lot better with a smaller. So this palette is going to work better with these kind of brushes, where you've got, this would be about the fluffiest I would get with it, and it does have, you know, a pinched ferrule, so it can get really thin. And this is the Sigma E25 blending brush, or like this kind of like detail blending brush. This is by the Jaclyn Hill Morphe collection. This is the JH40. Or, you know, even these kind of brushes where they're just really detail oriented kind of brushes, packer brushes, versus this kind of brush, which is floofy. You're not gonna have a whole lot of luck with this kind of brush. With that being said, I really did enjoy this palette. It will stay in my collection. While it's not my favorite of the Vault palettes, I do love the color story in this palette. And it is a cool tone palette that I actually had a really good time with, and I don't typically have great times with cool tone palettes, as you all know. So it will be staying in my collection, and I will probably pick it up around like Christmas time or something. That's really kind of what it reminds me of, is like, I do my house in blues and silvers. So there's that. Also, green is my favorite color. Not my most favorite color to use on my eyes, but it is my favorite color, and this does have a lot of greens in it. I think that's why I was so disappointed with that olive, because I really just wanted a beautiful olive in my collection, and I'm finding that there's just not a whole lot of beautiful olives out there. Okay, so now we're gonna pick a new palette. For those of you who are unaware, I do have a Samsung Note 9, and I do utilize an app that I picked up in the Play Store called the Decide Now app. This is an, if I can get it open, this is an Android app, but I know that they also have this on the iOS system, because the person that I pull inspiration from, she had an Apple phone and was using the same kind of app from the App Store. So with that being said, I did put all of the palettes that I owned into this wheel prior to starting this series. As we go through and we do them in a palette roulette, I do take those palettes out. As I bring new palettes in and haul them with you, I do put them into this. It might be an ever-going series. I hope not. I hope to one day be at the end of this, really. But I have a palette addiction, and I won't lie. I don't foresee that ever happening. Let's go ahead and spin the wheel. So we got the Pat McGrath Labs Eye Ecstasy Subversive palette, which is a very small palette. It's 5 shades, and it's just 5 of her special shades. So I think I also am going to pick another palette. And we got the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk. So a very large palette and a very small palette, but that's okay. I think I can utilize both of them in conjunction with each other. We do 2 palettes a lot around here, mostly to A, get through the palettes, but also B, when I pick a really small palette, it's hard for me to just utilize that one palette. So I'm gonna go get those palettes, and I will be right back. This is an interesting little pairing, but I do think I can make it work. This is the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette, and I do remember when this palette first came out, I wanted it so bad. I think it's the first Huda Beauty palette that I had. This is what it looks like inside. Hugely warm toned. There is a lot of like neutral tones in here though as well. It does have pressed glitter. I hate pressed glitters, so just so you guys are aware, that glitter is not going to get used. But the rest of these, I really love this palette. The only one that I absolutely hate in this palette is this one here, which is sad because it's such a beautiful purple, but it is a horrible purple. And then of course the pressed glitter, which I don't necessarily hate, I just don't like pressed glitters. So there's that piece. That's the big palette. And then the small palette, the Pat McGrath Eye Ecstasy Subversive, looks like this. This is just 5 of her little special shades, and we just did one of these Eye Ecstasy palettes, only it was the Sublime one, so more of neutral tones. So this is actually, I think, going to pair really rather well with this. I think that they go really good together. So I'm excited to come back to you guys next week and talk to you about these two palettes and show you the looks I came up with those two palettes. Hopefully I've gotten everything in this video that I really wanted to talk about. For the Jaclyn Hill X Morphe Dark Magic, why can I never remember that? I think I actually put it down in my description box as what I was wearing in a video as Dark Matters. I can never remember that name, but I hope that you guys enjoyed the review that I had, and if you did, I hope that you're considering giving this a big thumbs up. I hope that you liked it enough, or me enough, that you're also considering subscribing before you go. And if you didn't like the video, please do give it a thumbs down. I would love to hear from you. Tell me what you don't like about it. Be nice about it, but tell me what you don't like. I would love to see you down in the comments section. I would love to have you stick around and see some of the other palettes that I have a review on through this palette roulette series. Some of the palettes I've decluttered. A lot of them I have decided to keep. I also hope that you want to stick around and just watch some of my other content, because it's all real good too. I love you so much. Please stay safe out there. Please wear your mask if it's mandated, or just practice social distancing, because that is mandated all over the country. Please stay safe. Please be kind to others. And until next time, bye guys.